With an ahi loin, you basically have three parts. You have the belly portion right here, you have the bloodline, and then the eye or the actual loin that you're going to serve. You want to start by separating the belly from the eye itself, and you're going to run down that piece of sinew and basically roll the loin back as you're flexing towards the skin on the lower half. Now, the next step is to remove this bloodline, which is this black piece right here. And that is literally the bloodline that runs down the length of the fish. And it's extremely fishy. So you want to make sure that you're always removing that completely and you never serve it. See how I'm just making long, shallow strokes and I'm slowly rolling that bloodline back. Now, the long, shallow strokes are going to make it so you can realign your cuts if necessary. And it's going to give you a much better yield. And it's not going to give you the uneven hacksaw look. Now, if I was going to cut steaks, I would start about at this thickness and I just cut straight down. And that'd be serving an ahi steak cut straight from the loin. Instead, though, we're going to be cutting soku block, which is what you use for sashimi. Now, one thing you want to notice is obviously this loin shape is more triangular than it is square. So my next step is to cut off that outer edge, yielding a nice rectangular piece. And that outer edge will still be used for sashimi, it's just not going to be as nice looking. Simply cut down the middle, and that's going to give you two large soku blocks. And then if you want to go a little bit smaller, you can then take those individual long rectangles and you can cut them once again. And as you cross cut those, it's going to give you the nice square sashimi that you're used to seeing in high-end sushi restaurants. Next, I'm going to take the outer triangular piece because it's a little bit large, and I'm just going to slice it straight down the middle, forming two soku blocks. Now, for an actual sashimi preparation, all you have to do is cross-cut your soku blocks, and it's going to give you a nice piece of sashimi. Normally, you would do 5 to 7 slices per plate. You can also cut at a biased angle if you want to get a little bit of a larger surface area and serve a larger piece of sashimi. It's all completely up to what you want and what you're going for. Now, the belly portion should never be wasted, so what I do is I use a spoon, and this is called spoon tuna, and I'm going to spoon against the grain of the connective tissue that's in the belly. The problem with the belly is, because it has all that connective tissue inside the flesh, it's much too tough if you just slice it like you would sashimi. So instead, what you want to do is you want to scrape off with a spoon. See how I'm using my knife here to kind of go through and peel back the different layers. And as I'm peeling back these layers with the knife, I'm going to go back in with a spoon, and I'm going to scrape this completely clean. Now, this belly portion is still extremely flavorful, and a lot of different ways to serve it. This is actually predominantly where the spicy ahi comes in at your local sushi restaurants. Most likely it's from the actual belly meat itself that got scraped clean. Also, too, this belly meat can be used for ahi tartare, ahi egg rolls, whatever you want to do. But you want to remember that the ahi itself is very, very flavorful since it does come from the belly and should be treated as such, especially with a high-grade A+1 ahi. I'm not a big fan of doing an overly spicy tuna because it affects the flavor and the texture of the meat. You're not going to be able to taste it as much. So I'd recommend doing a nice light ahi tartare with this, dressed with a little bit of sesame oil, maybe some sauce ponzu, little sesame seeds, serve it with a side of wonton chips, and that's going to be a great way to utilize your belly portion and your scraps. Now, after you've sliced out your soku block, it's very important to store it correctly. And the way you want to do that is by wrapping it nice and tight in plastic wrap. And see how when I fold it over here, I'm making sure that the plastic wrap is completely in contact with the surface of the fish. Because what happens is when oxygen comes into contact with the flesh of the fish for a prolonged period of time, it's going to turn it gray. Not too good. So I make a little cut, I fold in the ends, and this is going to allow me to have a nice tight seal on this fish and save it for service, which is going to be later tonight. And again, when storing the belly pieces, you want to achieve the exact same thing where you want to limit the amount of oxygen that comes into contact with the flesh. So I'm just going to pack it down nice and tight into this plastic deli container. And on top of that, I'm going to put plastic wrap. And just very gently, I don't want to actually smash the fish, but very gently, I'm going to pack it down and make a nice tight seal. And when stored correctly, it'll keep in your fridge for up to 3 to 5